Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the Orange County Historical Society. Can everyone hear me all right in the back? No, okay. I don't know what we need to adjust up here. All right, that a little better? Back there? Okay, good deal. All right, well, welcome to the Orange County Historical Society. Sorry about the little bit of confusion. I was gone last month. October, we knew where the key to that hall was. October, we knew where the cable was to connect all of this, but we got it figured out now. So anyway, a few announcements, a few things to say before we start the meeting. First of all, I just wanted to say a little something. It was 5 years ago today that we lost Phil Brigandy. And, obviously his presence will be felt with our organization forever, with anybody who cares about local history. It's certainly fitting that Eric is our speaker tonight because, Phil was a mentor to both Eric and I, and really changed our lives in great ways. I got a better education from Phil Brigandy than I ever could have from any university, I think, working for 5 years with him day in, day out. If you don't already know Phil, and it's hard to believe that you don't, he wrote about 30 books about Southern California history, mostly Orange County. He ran museums, the Temecula Museum, the Ramona Pageant Museum, and others. He was a contributor. He wrote hundreds of excellent historical articles for a wide variety of publications. He was a columnist for several different newspapers over the years. He was a frequent lecturer. He led tours for us. He was our best volunteer in our archives, really. Stephanie George as well, but really leading the charge. But as far as somebody that Stephanie could rely on to come down, pitch in and do real work, Phil was at the top of the list. For those early years of that. I just cannot say enough about the guy, and there isn't a day that passes I don't think about him. There isn't a week that passes that I don't find myself forced to quote him, because there is no better way to say the thing about local history that needs to be said than to say, well, Phil always said. Not to bring things down too much, but it was actually at our Historical Society meeting in December in 2019 where we realized Phil did not show up for the meeting. And that was really weird. Unless he was down really sick or something. So we started checking around, and we during the meeting, and could not figure out where he was. And immediately ended up over at St. Joe's, and that's where we found him. So it's kind of an important milestone. It just seems like 5 years, and it's hard to believe that it has been 5 years because it does kind of seem like yesterday. So anyway, keep Phil's work alive, read what he wrote. He may not have had kids, but his children are it really amounts to all of the great work that he turned out over so many years, and we'll all be benefiting from that forever. So anyway, I probably should have prepared something there, but with that said, I do also want to invite all of you to next month's meeting when we should be back in the other hall. The program will be about, it's called Knott's Berry Tales. And some of you may remember that there was a kids' ride at Knott's Berry Farm called Knott's Berry Tales. That is at the core of the talk, and the talk is going to be by Chris Merritt, who's a longtime Imagineer for Disney. and by Eric Linksweiler, who some of you will remember is another theme park historian who does a lot of work for Knott's as well. And they've just written a book about Knott's Berry Tales, but it's not just about this very interesting ride. It's about Rolly Crump, longtime one of the first Disney Imagineers who designed half of Disneyland, I think, who designed this ride and his career. It's about Marion Knott, who was the woman who had the vision to create this and to do a lot of, this is one piece of the larger puzzle of Knott's Berry Farm going through a lot of changes in the 70s as she took over from her parents in running the place and became one of the first major female executives to run a large business in a large corporation in Orange County. So her story is also an interesting one, and these things all weave together. So it should be a fun evening with a lot of interesting angles to talk about. So that is coming on January 9th. And then I also wanted to mention, I see some new faces here tonight. Welcome. Thank you for coming. And want to let you know if you enjoy coming tonight or you see future upcoming programs that look interesting, and we do meet every month except July and August and have a different speaker each month with a different topic. And we've been around for over a century now, so we're probably sticking around. So if you join, your membership will probably be worth something for the rest of the year. We're not disappearing on you in the middle of the night. So you can sign up over here at the check-in table if you want to become a member. I think we may even have do we have a few newsletters over there too if people want one? Okay, we got newsletters, we've got membership forms, and also after the meeting, do help yourself to refreshments. With that, I would like to introduce our speaker. And Eric Plunkett is, I would say, arguably the best local historian Orange County has right now. He's doing fantastic work. His focus is really the Spanish, the Mission, the Mexican, and the very early American eras in Orange County. He's been doing fantastic work and research. He's been here to speak many times. He has led us on many history hikes and tours. He's the author of a wonderful, fairly recent book still on Father Junipero Serra and his time in Orange County, which if you have not read it, you owe it to yourself. It's even if you think you know all there is to know about Serra, it turns out we didn't. Eric's the kind of guy who doesn't just do the research here. He's in Mexico City going through the archives. He's in touch with Spain and the archives there, going and looking for the correspondence that was going back and forth at this time. Incredible work. He is from Placentia. He teaches in the Yorba Linda schools, and he is and he has been doing some fantastic work on the village sites as well in Orange County. So without further ado, Eric Plunkett.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. I so appreciate it, and welcome everybody. It's very good to see you. I know we had some technical difficulties at the beginning, so I might go kind of more quickly through things. That's just to make sure that we get through everything. We're talking tonight about one of my favorite topics, which is about, if you know anything about Orange County, that Orange County has been populated for a very long time, long before the Spanish were ever here. And so what I've been working on is trying to tell the stories of the people who were here then, all the way back at the beginning of what we think of as Orange County. And tonight, it's a special honor of mine that many of the descendants of those people are here with us tonight. And so to all the Acjachemen here tonight, really is an honor to have you here. So thank you for being here. Okay, let's get started. Now, you probably know something about the Acjachemen. If you're here and you're interested in history, we know that the Acjachemen people, and if your neck hurts tomorrow, you guys know why. You're looking way up. But let's say what is today Orange County was home to roughly 50 village sites, right? This is at the beginning when the Spanish first arrived. That's about how many. There could have been more, there could have been less. It depends on what you define as a village. And they really were kind of village territories. I think we think of like a lot of our own, like the site was here, but they were really territories, and they used the natural landscape as a territory where they would gather all of the different things that were needed to live a life. And so they were politically independent, each of these kind of village territories, but they were shared ethnicity, shared culture, right? Of course, shared language, and shared through trade. There were very strong familial ties between them. I'm going to get into those in just a minute, and extensive trade networks. And I'm not talking like just like local, I mean extensive. There's material culture coming all the way from New Mexico here in Orange County. And they were very aware of this, and they traveled very long distances, not necessarily all the way to New Mexico, but they had intermediaries that traded all the way across and to Northern California and into Baja. This is just kind of a depiction of what a village site might kind of look like, and it just kind of gives you an idea of the kind of lifestyle that they were living, and it was shaped by the natural world around us, which I think is amazing, because Orange County has a lot of open space. You can't go into the open space without thinking of the people who were living there, right, and made a living there. Okay, so this is a map of South County. And you can see all of the modern cities, Laguna Niguel, Dana Point, Mission Viejo. But throughout these modern cities, there were a bunch of village sites and village territories. Each one of these red things, Paplenga, this is over by Laguna Beach. You have Mission San Juan Capistrano is next to Acjachemen. And just upstream on the Trabuco is Putiidam and Sahivit, Puiva, Uhunga. You have all of these various village sites that were all around us. And even where we are tonight is near one of these village sites that was just a little south of here at Pasvenga. And a little bit up the Santa Ana River from here was Hutuukna. And so you have a whole bunch of village sites all throughout the county. And of course, we up here in Northern County, the people are referred to as the Tongva people, and they had a relationship with the Acjachemen people. And so you have these kind of different territories, but again, all shared ethnicity and shared culture. Now, this work of the archaeologist Stephen O'Neill, and some of you may have attended Stephen O'Neill's talk for the Society just a couple months ago. Through various different other avenues, we've been able to research some of the names of these villages. And we know what some of these names mean, even though the Acjachemen here could probably help us understand it a little better. But based on just the research that I'm aware of, you have like the village of Putiidam means protruding navel, and that refers to an origin story of the Acjachemen in South County. And that's in the vicinity of J. Sarah High School near San Juan Capistrano. Acjachemen means massive moving things, or maybe wild pea, and that's near, if you ever go to Mission San Juan Capistrano, there was a village site right adjacent to the mission. Sahivits, which may mean like a mourning ceremony, right? So there was an annual mourning ceremony for those who had died over that past year, and that may have been an important village where that may have taken place. And that's at the intersection of Antonio Parkway and Ortega Highway, again down near San Juan Capistrano. Uhunga, which means arrow foreshaft, referring to the bush, the Chinese, or the chamise bush. And if you've ever seen those, if you actually see those, the stalks are very, very straight, and they're very strong. And so that's the vicinity of Coda de Casa and Thomas F. Riley Wilderness Park. Alauna or Alauna, which means to raise one's head up. We've done a history hike there. That's in O'Neill Park. And what are they looking up at? Saddleback. Right? You can see the peaks of Saddleback. They're just dominating the skyline. And so the people then, named that location off of that same view that you can see today. And then you have Puhu, which is in the valley of Pamaham. And Puhu means his or her arrow place or meadow on top, Pamaham. And that's Hidden Ranch in Black Star Canyon. And this is to give you an idea of some of these villages where they were living and what they were named. And today they look roughly like this. This is near the village of Sahivit. Again, it's not like here's exactly where the village was. It was a territory. There were places where you would have had habitations, but all of this region would have been utilized for resource acquisition. This is Huhunga, that's chamise that grows up in the hills above there. And this is Alauna or Alauna, and you can see Saddleback right there. There's Santiago Peak and Majesca Peak. and Trabuco Canyon is right off to the left where the oaks are. And this is Puhu in Pamaham. This is in Black Star Canyon. And you guys probably know what those are, right? These are the bedrock mortars where they would have been grinding acorns, right? And those bedrock mortars, there are tons of them up there. Some of them have even been moved from the site. And so this was a very, very important site. So these are some of the villages that were already existing before the Spanish got here. So I'm going to give you the overview. This is just a quick overview, and I'll go through this quickly. The Spanish first arrived permanently under the Portola expedition in 1769. They found Mission San Juan Capistrano in 1776, at least permanently in 1776. And in 1782, that south wing and the Sarah Chapel that you can visit at the mission today, that's about when those were built. In 1806, the Great Stone Church, you know, the ruins are still there at the mission, was completed. 1812, the earthquake happened during Mass when the Great Stone Church fell. And 40 Acjachemen lost their lives during Mass when that happened. Feast of Immaculate Conception, that was December 8th. The anniversary was just a couple of days ago. The Acjachemen were there ringing the bell to honor those who had lost their lives. 1818, I spoke here about Bouchard the pirate. In 1821, this becomes Mexico. Spain loses their grasp of this area after the Mexican Revolution. And in 1834, the missions are secularized, which means that the lands are broken up and they become basically privately owned. So this is the overview of Spanish involvement. But what did they do here that helps us understand the Acjachemen? They kept records. They kept what we call registers. These records included all of the baptisms, marriages, and burials of all of the individuals at the mission from 1776 through the 1840s. There are 2 books of baptisms, 1 book of marriages, up to 1,100. Oh, yeah, the baptisms, over 4,600 total baptisms during this period of Acjachemen and others who were here, including Spanish, but mostly Acjachemen. 1 book of marriages, up to over almost 1,200 marriages, and burials, which includes about 3,400 burials. So what do those look like? This is one of them. This is one of those registers. This is the Book of Marriages, right? So this was here in Orange County in the 1770s and was used to record all of the marriages there at the mission. And here's the first marriage ever recorded here. So to understand Orange County, you have to understand that it was a diverse place right from the beginning, right? Not only did you have Acjachemen peoples from different village sites, you had Tongva peoples now in northern Orange County, but the Spanish brought with them Cochimí people from Baja California. And the first marriage was between 2 Cochimí. This is Saturnino and Brigida. And they had children, and I haven't been able to prove it yet, but I know that Saturnino has descendants somewhere. And so you have people who were brought up from Baja to help the missionaries because they knew how missions worked, and then they could set examples for the Acjachemen in the missions. Hey, this is how we do things in mission life. And so there it is, one of the first things ever written in today's Orange County. Here's another one of the first things ever written in today's Orange County. This is written by Father, now Saint Junipero Serra, and this is the introduction to the Book of Baptisms. And so just to understand the Acjachemen presence right from the get-go, you can see this is in the hand of Serra. So de los bautismos, baptisms, de esta misión de San Juan Capistrano, de Sahavit, or de Juanes Sahavit. And that's the name of that village I was just talking to you about. So the original mission was founded actually upstream from where it is today, but it was founded next to the village of Sahavit. And so that's how they referred to its location. So right from the get-go, you have to see the missions as being predominantly populated by the Acjachemen people, and that even the village name was retained in Sarah's hand here at the Book of Baptisms. This is what a typical entry looks like, okay? And I color-coded it for you so you can get an idea of what it looks like. So this is a baptism, 28279. So this is the 2,879th baptism. His name was Gervasio, okay? And in yellow, you can see the date, the 19th of 19 de junio de 1808. I solemnly baptized, in this is the church, Iglesia de esta Misión de San Juan Capistrano, a child about 1 month old, son of parents, and you can see that the parents' names Artomiogoaromovit, and Humuku Peharana, which I'm doing my best to pronounce it. I'm not doing a great job. You guys could do a lot better. But thank you for your understanding. But the cool thing is that we can look at these names, right, these parents, and then we can track who they are. We can track who their children were, we can track where they were, who they got married to, when they were buried, and we can start to put together some idea of what their lives were like. And this happens to be the very first baptism, the very first mention in any of the Mission San Juan Capistrano materials of the Rancho de Santiago. This is 1808, and we are on the Rancho de Santiago, referring to Santiago Creek. And so this is the first time it shows up in any of the materials at Mission San Juan Capistrano. So you can see we can get the baptized name, where it happened, who the godparents were, all this kind of information. Now, that information has also been put online. You can do this. And this was done by it's on the Huntington, actually, is the one that hosts this. This is called the Early California Population Project. They digitized these records, and they're all there. You can look them up yourself. That's how I started doing this. This record right here that I found, his name was Kuei, and Kuei was working on the construction of the Great Stone Church in 1800 and died when one of the walls fell. And so now, here's again, we can say his name. He was just, we knew somebody died, building the church. Well, now he has a name. We can find out where he came from. We can start to put together his whole story, right? He's not just somebody who died in the church, an Indian died. No. It's a person who came from a village who has a life, and we can start to tell what that life story is. Okay. Through this process, we've been able to identify village leaders at the time the Spanish got here. And so this will give you an idea of what this looks like. So Putiidam, which is where about J. Serra High School is, his name was, the Spanish used Capitan. That basically just means the leader of the village, right? And his name was Raunet, which I think translates to raven. And then Acjachemen, which is the village where the mission is today. The captain was Tuian Puhivit. His son was a sub-captain, was going to be captain upon the ceremony that would name him so. His name was Ompsil, who was a very, very important individual at the mission in the early years, actually for more than the first decade. And Sahavit had the captain Taklek, and Taklek means hunched back. And his son was the sub-captain Pa'at, and Pa'at meant mountain sheep. And his daughter's name was Tepi, which means gold or gilt ladybug. And so you can start to get an idea of the people here were named after all of these different various animals that were around. And the cool thing is those are cool names, right? And so now we can kind of get a sense for what they thought about individuals and how they were being named. And in fact, Tepi was married to Raunet, a Putiidam. So this is the same map from earlier. Here's where the mission is today. Here's Putiidam, here's Sahavit. And Raunet was married to Tepi. And so right here you see this kind of alliance between these two villages, right? We know where the village is based on the archaeological research. Now we can start to put together, people from these villages were married. And Tepi would have moved to Raunet's village from Sahavit to Putiidam. So going further into this, look at the years. These are some of the most important early baptisms. And you can see that this is right at the beginning. 1777, the sub-captain Ompsil of Acjachemen, who's married to an individual from Panhe, which is on the San Mateo Creek, if you've been down the 5 freeway, over by Camp Pendleton. And then just right after that, right, you have the next year, the Sahavit sub-captain Pa'at, who's also his wife, who's from Huhunga, who I mentioned earlier. And Pa'at ends up being the first alcalde of the mission, who's kind of like one of the leaders of the people at the mission, who's in charge of kind of carrying out all of the legal and the kind of how would I say it? He was the guy that the missionaries basically were like, he's going to run everything with the Acjachemen who are living there. Next, in 1781, you have Sahavit Captain Taklek and his wife are both baptized in 1781. And then in 1782, the Putiidam's captain Raunet and his wife Tepi, they also come into the mission. And you know that all of these people are related. And this is happening over a period of years. So you start to see a story going on. You know, what did they think when somebody else was baptized into the mission? How did they feel about that? It would have been a family decision probably to some extent. Where were these villages? This is what this looks like. Everybody on that last page, all these different villages. So the way the mission worked was, the mission would be founded in a place, and then when a leader would agree to be baptized, to some extent the village territories would come under the mission control. And the idea was, over the long run, that those territories would be given back to the people who lived there, which didn't end up happening. But you can see that it started spreading out from the mission to all of these various different areas in the surrounding region. So now let's try to get more into kind of individual stories that had happened. So I mentioned this story to the OCHS before, but it's worth repeating. In 1776, when the mission is founded, right, and you have Father Serra, who's part of that founding process, he goes to Mission San Gabriel, which had already been established before this. He goes to get cattle. He's coming back, and while he's on his way back, he runs into the people at the village of Alauna, and I'm going to explain how I figured that out. And so they come out on the road, and it's like, wait, what's going to happen? They're on the road, they have bows and arrows, are they going to attack us? And so Sarah's out in front with one soldier, he's alone with this soldier, the cattle are behind him, there are two soldiers behind that. This is in O'Neill Park in today's Orange County, and he thinks he's going to be killed. And this is the time here in Orange County, actually after the 1769, when he thinks that he's going to die. And he writes, or he's recorded as having said, "I really did believe the hour had arrived for me to obtain what I so greatly desired, which was martyrdom." Okay, and that happened right here in O'Neill Park. Okay, where did the story come from? So I have this book, 1787. It's a biography of Sarah, published in Mexico City. This is it. This is the first time anything is published talking about Orange County specifically, and it's this passage right here. And this is returning for the new mission with the said supplies and going out in front of the cargo in order to arrive more quickly. And he went with a soldier, and while he was on the road, he had this issue where the people came out onto the road, and they were armed with bows and arrows, and they were painted, and they knew that the paint that they were on, that might indicate that they're here to wage war. And what ends up happening? Well, there is a translator that had been brought from San Gabriel. That translator was saying to Sarah, who he was already baptized, he said to Sarah, "I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what the people of Alauna are saying." And Sarah goes, "Well, tell them that if they attack us, we're going to send soldiers to kill them." And so the translator yells at them and says, "Hey, we're going to send soldiers if you guys harm us at all." And then the people of Alauna immediately backed down. And that was kind of the end of the story. And then at the end here, it says Sarah pulls out a bunch of beads and he starts passing them out and he becomes the missionary. So this is a story, right? And we know about this story. Well, I wanted to know what else we could find out about the story. So I go to the Bancroft Library. And so I go to the Bancroft Library and there's a military report in Spanish that's written about it. And that military report looks like this. And in there you can see this, the Paraje del Trabuco. That's Trabuco Canyon. I knew when that was named during the Portola expedition. Now I know what village it is. It's Alauna. I know the village because that's what Trabuco was. So Trabuco was named during the Portola expedition. We now know what village it is. There it is. It was located in this region. I showed this earlier. So now it's not just a story in this book from 1787. Now it's a place, right? So now I have the place. And the village of Alauna is in Father Boscana, another missionary at Capistranos. He wrote an ethnology about the Acjachemen people. It's referred to as Chinishnish. And now we can find in the registers the very individuals who were involved in this story. So I put them all together. Here are all the individuals, all of the males who were baptized at the mission and were the right age from Alauna, who may have been involved with that incident with Sarah. So now instead of just Sarah's version of the story, we can start to figure out, hey, what about the other part of this story? And I like to point out to Acjachemen, look at one of their names, Ano. And I don't know if anybody knows what Ano, what was it? Coyote, yeah, which is, remember we talked about the names, and Ano means coyote. And so it's really cool that we can now kind of get a sense of who were the people involved with that story. It's not just the Spanish side, there's a whole nother side to the story, and it is discoverable in those registers. And so now, when we think of that story, and we put all the pieces together, I can tell you some more details. After translating the report and going through all of the materials, what actually happened was, the people who were coming out on the road that Sarah thought was going to kill him, they said, "You guys have animals we can eat. They're just right here. Can we just kill them right now and eat them?" I mean, they're on their foraging lands. They're walking through their village. It was never about harming Sarah. It was about getting the cattle, because those were animals that were passing right through their village territory. So what else can we say about individuals involved at this very early time period in Orange County, right? You have Sarah, who is this missionary, and he, before he even founds Mission San Juan Capistrano, he meets 3 Acjachemen individuals. They had been given Spanish names, and so a lot of times the Spanish would just refer to them as those names. And 3 of them were Capistrano, Bernardino, and Buenaventura. So I went through the registers, found those Spanish names, and wouldn't you know it, but early important individuals at the mission had those Spanish names. What can we do now? We can find out what their actual names were, what their Acjachemen names were, right? And so it turns out that Capistrano's name was Cutco, right? I couldn't find Bernardino's, but Buenaventura's is Yigu Yigu. And so all of these 3 end up having something to do with Sarah. Sarah actually knows these guys, and I can prove it, because Sarah baptizes on one of his visits to Mission San Juan Capistrano some Acjachemen individuals, and the first person he baptizes is in part a half-brother of Juan de Capistrano, who was the first adult Acjachemen baptized at the mission. And then Bernardino, another one of these individuals that Sarah met before the founding, and this is now years later, well, Sarah baptizes an individual with the name Bernardino, right? And so this continues on, and so Sarah also has to do with Yigu Yigu, this Buenaventura. This is the same thing where he is recorded as having been related to somebody that Sarah is baptizing. And Yigu Yigu, let me finish that up. This individual Yigu Yigu, one of the things about the Acjachemen to remember is that they weren't these people who were just, they were there during the mission era and that was it. He ends up living the entirety of the mission era from the founding of the mission, he's there, all the way to secularization in the 1830s. And he's still there. He's still living there when Richard Henry Dana is throwing the cattle hides off the side of Dana Point. And so he lives this very long life. So there's this continuity between when the Acjachemen were living in the pre-Spanish and then all the way through the Spanish era. Many of them lived all the way through it into the Mexican era and beyond. Okay, the idea that the mission kept expanding, it of course kept expanding. It went into other village territories, and it went into territories up here in the Santa Ana Mountains. In 1812, there was a huge baptism event. We had 170 baptized over 7 days in 1812. This is a huge number. It increased the population of the mission by like 14% over just like 7 days. And they were baptized at the bottom of the bell tower at the mission today, and they were all from villages of Pamaham, Guaromo, Wapehanga, Anonga. So I went to the registers and started to figure out where are these villages, who are these individuals, and we can put it together. And you can see the missions down here. This is where they were first baptizing individuals, but now it's 1812. Now it's 30 years later. Where are the villages where people, the baptized individuals are coming from? They're coming from up over here. We're about here. This is where we're sitting tonight. Okay, up the Santa Ana River, you have Pamaham, which is up in the Santa Ana Mountains. That's Black Star Canyon. Guaromo might be on the other side. Anonga, which is in the Temescal Valley. And so you can see that there was a relationship between the individuals of these villages. So when they got baptized together. These were familial ties that brought them together so they would get baptized together. It was a family decision. So now you can start getting in the headspace. Imagine what that was like for them, making that decision to enter into the mission and why that might have been. And you know that it's a complex story. So this is what those baptisms look like. So this is in 1812, and again in the Church of the Mission, where they're baptizing all these individuals. Okay, so I mentioned the Black Star Canyon. I know at one of my talks about Santa Ana Mountains, I talked about Black Star Canyon Falls. This is the falls. This is Orange County. Beautiful. It's popular on social media. We're hoping that we can protect the site because it's such an important one, and it's just below the village of Puhu. Has anybody been there? Anybody been up to Black Star? Yeah, it's an amazing place. Yeah, it's an amazing place. And there it is up in the mountains, Santa Ana Mountains. Gorgeous place. Phil Brigandy used to joke. He goes, the Acjachemen knew how to pick spots. And he's like, they always had the best spots. And I was like, yeah, they always had the best spots. And he goes, well, they did choose first. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true. And then Puhu also shows up in the Mission San Gabriel registers as well. And so you can look through those. And so these are individuals, and you have to think of these as the original Orange Countyans, right? If we're going to study Orange County history, these guys got to be part of that story. Okay, I'm going to go over Father Boscana. In the 18-teens and 1820s, a missionary at Capistrano wrote a huge ethnographic overview of the Acjachemen people. And it's very, very, it's an amazing read. You can find it for free on archive.org. No other missionary in all of Alta California, the state of California today, did this. It's the only one that we have, and it's really a fascinating read. You do have to read it carefully because it wasn't just written by Boscana. Yes, it was written by Boscana, but there's more to this story. So it's called, or it's referred to as Chinishnish, and it was published in 1846 in New York. So this was the first time that Orange County was on the radar of anybody on the East Coast of the United States, because this book was published and it was about the Acjachemen. It was about the people of Mission San Juan Capistrano. Father Boscana was there from 1814 to 1826. It's unique in the California missions, first published in New York. Here's the title page. And you can see Reverend Father Fray Geronimo Boscana. And I think it says, the Acjachemen Nation, referring to the Acjachemen. So that's really one of the first California group of people here that is known on the East Coast because of this. But how did Boscana get this information? He got this information, he says, from two village leaders, captains, one religious leader, a pool, and the youngest of whom was over 70 years of age. That's what he says. And the Acjachemen shared information with discretion. You guys can only imagine if somebody came from like out some Mars and came into your house and said, so tell me about your life. Tell me about how you live. They were going to be sharing what they thought was best to share. And so we know we have to read that text with that in mind, but they were successful. The book is now widely available, and we know so much about the Acjachemen because of what was written down. And like I said, you should look it up. It's freely available. Well, we have the registers. With that information, I can find out all of the individuals who are over 70 years of age, right, who were living at the mission, who went back, and I'm trying to figure out who were these guys. Because we always say Boscana's Chinishnish, right, this book that he wrote. Well, I want to know who it was, because if we can start to figure out who they were, then we can start to tell their stories. And there are a whole bunch, there's not that many candidates. It's 4 plus 4, 8 total candidates that fit this criteria who could have been his informants. And there's some very interesting patterns that are in there. And I'm hoping with a little more research, we'll be able to identify these people for the first time who are helping him write this. And we can really think of them as kind of co-authors. They are the ones who are supplying the information that he is writing down. So I want to end with one of these stories. The thing is this research is in a nascent state. It really is. The Early California Population Project, all this register information, it really just became available. So there's so much more to be done. Every time I go on there and start looking for things, I find stories. So let me tell you a story of a woman, an Acjachemen woman. And she was from the village of Uxme or Mokuacham. Uxme, possibly, which means California rose, or Mokuacham. Mokuacham, I believe, means flee. And if you've ever been down the 5 freeway and saw Las Pulgas Road, Pulgas means fleas. So the Spanish would name in Spanish the same Acjachemen word, what the word referred to. The Spanish would just go, oh, okay, we call that pulgas, and they called it pulgas. And then, sometimes even the Americans would then go, oh, it's, we're going to call it our version of that word. It's on or near today's Camp Pendleton. She was 8 years old when the Portola expedition came through. When Portola comes through, he names the place Las Flores, the flowers. And you can see Uxmal might refer to California rose. So now you're seeing this connection. So she lived the first 8 years of her life with no Spanish involvement at all. And you're driving down that 5, that beautiful view of the ocean, that was her view of the ocean. She gets baptized in 1779 at Mission San Juan Capistrano, and then she marries a soldier of the guard, Pio Quinto Zuniga. And this was part of Sarah's plan. Sarah didn't want ranchos. He did not want what ended up happening. He didn't want Yorbas necessarily. He was actually okay with Yorba. But he didn't want rancheros. He thought that these were going to be the parish churches, the mission churches would become parish churches, and that the people would retain ownership over the land. That never happened. But that's what he expected to happen, even though they ended up taking a very, very, very long time, and eventually the missions were just broken up. So she's married to this soldier. What's that like? She has many children with him. What's that like? They move up to Los Angeles. They actually get a rancho near Santa Monica. So now you can imagine this woman's life. It's unbelievable. And she dies after 1825, and she has many living descendants today. In fact, I was wondering, do any of you happen to know if you're related? Because I know I've met a couple people who are related. So this image right here shows women from Mission San Gabriel in the late 1820s. And so this is just trying to give an image of what she may have looked like, what she may have been wearing. But she was also married to a soldier, and he ended up getting this rancho, right? And this is where she lived. It's near this area, right? This is near that Las Pulgas Road exit. This is actually on the base. I took this from the base. You can see the ocean out here. It's a beautiful spot. And later on, Mission San Luis Rey built a submission, an asistencia there, and this is what that looked like. So this is her home, right, that eventually has this on it. And this letter right here, this is her giving permission for her son to marry in 1825. And so what I love about this document when I found it is right there, she made this sign of the cross, giving permission for her son to get married. And I want to try to tell as much of her story as possible, but I think we need to imagine what that story must have been like. This was a person who started off her life without Spanish involvement. She went into mission life. She got married. She had children. And here are missionaries coming to her to get permission for her son to get married because her husband had died. And to me, the biggest thing about this is that it reminds me, wow, what a story of strength and resilience and perseverance and just incredible, the ability for her to adapt to all of the changing circumstances of her life. Living with her people before the Spanish come, living throughout the entire Spanish era. This is Mexico by the time this is being written, right? And she lived after this. So these are the stories I want to tell. And the reason I want to tell them is because I think that people like her name is Ayam, and I left her name till the end. Maria Rufina is her name in Spanish, Ayam. I'd like the idea of, we know Father Sarah, right? Those are the names that are known. But as Orange Countyans, I think it's worth knowing Ayam, because what a story she has. She ended up here in Orange County for a big part of her life, and I think her name can stand next to some of these names that we know from the Spanish, because her life is also extraordinary and incredible and worth knowing. And that's my goal. I want to tell as much of these stories as I possibly can, and we need help. There's a small group of us throughout the state. I work with a whole bunch of other scholars. We would love anybody who's interested in this stuff to throw down and help out. And why is that too? Another reason is because we know names like Columbus Tustin, right? We know names of the Yorbas with the Sepulvedas. We know all these founding people, the Anaheim colony, we know all the people involved with that. Well, we should know the Acjachemen. They're the original county people, and they're still here. And so I just wanted to share, Chairwoman Lucero is still here today. So, and again, thank you all for being here. This means so much to me to have the Acjachemen members here. And like I said, the biggest thing to take away from tonight is when we think of our county's history, that the people who were here before the county was ever even in anybody's mind are still here today. And so with that, a special thanks to Chairwoman Heidi Lucero and the Acjachemen who are here, Chris Jepson, Stephen O'Neill, who provided so much information that I have in here, and then Michelle Lawrence Adams of the Mission and Jennifer Ring. They really pushed me to make this presentation, so I have to include that. Of course, I have to include my wife, my beautiful wife, Stephanie. So she couldn't be here tonight, but there you go. Thank you all so much for hearing out tonight. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
Eric. Fantastic work,
absolutely.
as always.
Thank you, Chris.
There's always these moments in all of your talks where I go, really? Oh my gosh.
Good. That's what I'm trying to get at.
So, again, thank you, Eric. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's been a pleasure. And I just wanted to invite you all back next month. I also want to invite you to help yourself to goodies. If you would be kind enough at the end of the evening to help, we can make some stacks of chairs over here. Just grab one or two, and many hands make light work, and we can stack those up, and that'll help. So anyway.
Questions is what.
Oh yeah. Do we have questions?
Or if we have time, yeah.
Yeah, we've got time.
We got time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I'll let you in.
Oh yeah, sure.
Nelda?
Yeah.
So is it clear to you what it's the Tongva people, the boundaries? Are you
Boundaries.
So Luciano, Gabriel, and Wayne.
Yeah. Okay, so they could answer you probably better than me. But the thing is with the boundaries is we've kind of made a big deal about boundaries. And I think it's kind of like people would travel into each other's territories. It was more gradual than that you'd have linguistic differences the further you got away from any one point.
Luciano and Juanino are connected linguistically.
So the Luiseño or Payam Cowicham and the Acjachemen have a lot of very close ethnic connections. And Luiseño are in northern San Diego County, and they have a lot, very close. But there are still some things about the Acjachemen that are separate. And so there is kind of this idea of separation, even though they're very, very closely related. Yes.
What about Gabriel?
Yeah, Gabrielino, and when we say these names, Juaneño refers to San Juan Capistrano, Luiseño means San Luis Rey, another mission in northern San Diego, and Gabrielino is Mission San Gabriel. So the Gabrielino are also probably a couple different kind of groups that we kind of put under one, the Tongva. But where we are right now seems to have been kind of on that side, on the Tongva side of things. But the mountains, all the Santa Ana Mountains pretty much down were Acjachemen, or if you get way down in the southern part of the mountains, then it's Payam Cowicham, Luiseño. Yeah. Based on what Heidi's shared with me and others have. Yes.
What was the Tongva's linguistic connection to the Acjachemen and Luiseño?
Great question. The Tongva language is, Phil used to say it this way, the Acjachemen could understand the Tongva, or especially the southern Tongva, the closer that they were to them, but they would, they kind of talked funny, that kind of thing. And when you look at the vocabularies, there's a lot of similarities, but it is, there were distinctive differences. And so just like anything, like my middle school students, they have their own language. And so, yes. Yes.
You guys have events, correct? Don't you down, I'm thinking Santa Onofre?
Yep. Yeah, content, yes, we do.
Oh, yeah.
And you feel free to speak. I'm speaking. If you see if I'm saying anything, you just tell me, and you're free to jump in. I know Heidi does a bunch of talks, and I really want to attend one. So maybe we can go to her next talk. So let me know when that is, and we can maybe promote that.
We present at the Mission once a month.
You guys have a facility down there.
Well, we present at the Mission, our weavers, and we showed, my cousin's one of the big basket weavers. I'm just the one that pulls all the equipment for her, because I'm not a basket weaver, but she goes there and presents all the baskets, and we have a lot of other stuff that our tribe use. So, I have a lot of kids come through and look at it and everything, so you're more than welcome to come to the mission.
Very cool.
And
John,
they
you're
do the
gonna try
basket
it.
weaving demonstration when they're there. We do travel hall there. Yeah, no, we use that. Oh, yeah, we have a tribal hall that's there in San Juan Capistrano.
I really want to go. I will be there. Yes.
So did the church keep a separate register for the indigenous people as opposed to the Spanish?
They're all mixed in. Yep, they're mixed in together. Yeah, it was just the register for that. Like I said, they thought of it as this will become the parish church. So this is where you record baptisms. Yep. Yes.
So what about, how did Boscana end up writing? I mean, why was he the only one that did that? And was he just more sensitive to the?
It's a great question. A friend and colleague at the University of Texas is writing a book on this. I'm helping him with that book. He's writing it about Boscana. Why did Boscana write this?
Yeah.
He was there were many missionaries throughout the Americas, thousands throughout the centuries that the Spanish were here. He was not the first one to do this. There were other ethnographic overviews of the various peoples in South America, throughout Central America. In California, he was the only one who really went through that effort to do it. There are probably many reasons why he was. We're putting this together now. In part, we think it's because that he had known the first missionary of San Juan Capistrano when he was at the college where they came from in Mexico, Mugartegui, who was one of the founding missionaries of San Juan Capistrano, and he had correspondence with him. And so we're wondering if he was put at San Juan Capistrano because the Acjachemen were considered by the Spanish to be among the most, I don't know the proper word, but basically good people, willing to deal with all the things the Spanish were doing. And they were flexible and they would help out, and that's why they built the Great Stone Church. And they didn't build that at any of the other missions. That was a huge project. So it was also the right place for him to do it. Yeah, there were other places in Northern California that it would have been a problem. There was a lot more friction between the Spanish and the peoples who were living there. Yeah. All right, any other questions? Okay, it's been an honor to speak with all of you tonight. Thank you all so much. Happy holidays to all of you, and yeah, we'll see you next time.